Hello there. I'm going to go through the PowerPoint that we've been looking at in a couple of our meetings for Dancing in the Well, Art for Healing Trauma. One of the things that I want to call your attention to is some of the changes we've made. Initially, we talked about this being a conference, and we've used language like training. And so that we have been meeting, and one of the reasons is so that we are using common language and everyone has an understanding of the language that we are using for the purposes of this event. We decided that for reasons of understanding, most people understand conference as a larger event. And for expectation management, calling it a retreat gives the expectation that you're going to go away, you're setting yourself apart, there's a time away, and that it's going to be something that is given for you, something that's done, like a yoga retreat or a girls' weekend away retreat. So it's something that you can expect that something really nice is going to happen. And the way that we are geared, and with that one tweak, thank you, Diana, thank you, Lori, with that one tweak of the word retreat, we are able to move just gently into another direction that gives a more robust experience for the ambassadors who we are asking to come and spend time with us. So now trauma and adversity. Everyone experiences trauma, right? Earthquakes, tornadoes, terrorism, mass shootings. People experience these things all over the world at any given time. We all have big T and little t traumas. We all have little t traumas. If we're lucky, maybe we won't have a big T trauma. But one of the things about trauma is that school shooting, earthquake, tornadoes, these things happen and immediately help is dispatched. People are dispatched along the way to say, something horrible has happened to you and we want to help. We have resources. We have mental health counseling. We have things that are going to help you get over this time. And so even for people, for you are experiencing body, even for younger children who are experiencing these things, they are encased within their family home, so they are still getting a level of care. With adverse childhood experiences, you still have traumatic events that can be happening, whether it's being slapped or grabbed, whether it's witnessing something awful happening within your family to yourself or to someone else who is being charged to take care of you, like a mom or a stepmom. And often no one comes to your rescue. Maybe they don't know about it. Maybe you haven't even identified that these things are happening to me, and this is an event that could lead to trauma in my adult life. So, adverse childhood experiences are set apart from just, I don't want to say just trauma, but from trauma in that it's happening under 18 and that the people who are supposed to be taking care of you have not been able to or have not done so. In more recent years, there has been an expansion. This is an example of one. Witnessing violence, adverse neighborhood experiences. And this can be taken as like somebody moving into a neighborhood that's new. What's not on here is immigration status or immigration experiences, and that is huge and something that I hope that is being expanded in other places. So, what are some of the possible things that can happen by experiencing childhood? adversity. Everyone's not going to have these things. Plenty of people have experienced one, two, three, four adverse situations as a child, and they have lived really well, um, full lives. But some possible things that can happen, are that mortality, dying earlier, um, increase of depression, the likelihood of substance use, misuse, or committing suicide, learning and behavior problems. Again, everyone's not going to experience these things. However, we do know that there is an increased risk of adverse situations in adulthood with the more adverse experiences you've had in childhood. All right, so we've given that survey, but what are some examples? Emotional abuse, being put down, adults in your home who swear at the child and no one's protecting that child, um, physical abuse, sexual abuse, violence in the home, substance use problems in the home, mental health problems in the home, emotional neglect. This is one where a person might grow up not even realizing that this is an adverse experience. But if a child in the home is not made to feel safe and protected, not just their body, but their emotions, being listened to, being heard, we know that those things also carry over into adulthood. Physical neglect, divorce or separation of parents. This is very common. And again, when we are looking at things like this, we are not saying one thing is going to create a child into an adult who is going to be a serial killer because they had divorce or separation, but looking at the accumulation of adverse experiences. Having a household member go to prison, hunger. And again, looking at those in connection to earthquakes, tornadoes, terrorism, mass shootings. A mass shooting is horrible, right? Earthquakes, absolutely horrible. We know that the hurricane in Louisiana and New Orleans was horrible. But for many people, this is a one-time horrible event. Some of these other things that are happening in the lives of children are habitual things that are happening with patterns that are happening often and maybe happening from more than one person. So again, here are the examples of ACEs looking at what groups of people are already meeting some of the needs of people who have who have had experiences as children, and maybe they need a little bit of intervention as adults. We know that Carbondale United, Survivors Empowerment Center, Gateway Foundation, Centerstone, SIH, CISL, Beyond the Walls, Good Sam, Feed My Sheep, are people who are meeting the needs of people who have some needs to be met, but also looking at what's already being done in areas of art and healing trauma. And we know that Embody is a group, and I will also send that to you in the same email that I send. It's the Facebook page for Embody. We know that Sakabi is doing things that is helping. And I thought I had them on here. I'm so surprised I don't. But we know that Sakabi is doing things to help. So there are things that are happening. But here's the thing. Most of us are working in silos. Most of us are working in areas And sometimes we don't even know what other people are doing. Sometimes we do. But in one of our meetings, as we named these things, there were things to name because everyone does not know what everyone else is doing. And if we are able to create more awareness of what everyone is doing, and maybe even create a way for us to work together, it enhances the possibilities of us having more prevention for children who have not had ACEs yet, and to get intervention for children and for parents and for people who are working with children and those parents. So again, we've talked about the common ACEs here, and again, we just reiterated this page in conversation just to emphasize how how significant it is when a child is going through this. So looking at it through a public health lens, Kaiser Permanente, they are the ones who have researchers who were doing a study that evolved into the Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey. They were doing a study on obesity, and one of the researchers asked the question, how much did you weigh at your first sexual encounter? Well, the question was wrong. That person made a mistake. They meant to ask, how old were you at your first sexual encounter? But when the respondent answered 40 pounds, the researcher thought, surely I've made a mistake. And the woman said, no, I was a child at my first sexual encounter. That one question opened their eyes to associations of obesity and trauma. And we know that obesity is linked to so many health harms. So they noticed what was happening as a child with adverse experiences had the possibility to be connected to adversity in the lives of adults. A little bit later on, maybe by a couple of decades later, Kimberly Burke Harris noticed also. She noticed that she's a pediatrician who was working in California as a pediatrician. She eventually became the Surgeon General in California. But she noticed that when she talked to the parents of children who were having, where she saw multiple incidences of asthma and other things, and she talked to the parents, she was able to link some of the things that were happening in the home to some of the adverse physical things that were happening that she was seeing in her office. And she wrote a book called The Deepest Well. You can get a link to her TED Talk also on the Facebook page. So other people have noticed that when you connect art to healing, it helps in resolving some traumatic issues. Embody, Larry, with both the drum circle and the drum workshop. The drum circle is not Larry's. He helps facilitate that, helps bring that to, but it is for everyone, and it is really a great place to start. Old School Gospel Jamboree. I love this. So whether you believe in throat chakras or whether you believe in just being able to come in community and sing, being able to have that experience is a wonderful thing for going into a space feeling one way and coming out feeling another way. Pure Nature, they are new on the scene, but they do sound healing and yoga. Here we are with Sakabe. Sakabe is amazing, just wonderful. And they are increasingly becoming a presence in the Southern Illinois area. Well, not just with music and dance, but having those events and then connecting them to something greater. Arbeck does so many things from kitchen to working with Sakabe. The Southern Illinois Community Contra Dance is more than a contra dance. It's a place of learning about early American dance, music, and song, but also connecting that to the histories and sometimes traumatic histories of people who have been involved in those art forms. Project Human X with Paint and Sip. Um, Lori Merrill Fink with Qigong. She is to me the premier Qigong master in the Southern Illinois area. What we want to focus on using a public health lens is awareness, prevention, and promotion. Using what already exists and kind of breaking down the wall of those silos. So then more than a Venn diagram of collaboration, more than saying, oh, this person does that and this person does that, and this is where they meet in the middle, understanding more about trauma etiology, learning more about brain plasticity, and as a community, intentionally using what we have learned. So there's some precedents for this. People are using art for healing, and that word healing, I'm going to say it like it's a little a healing. No one is expecting, not only is there not the expectation, there is not therapists who are acting in the role of therapists or art therapists or mental health people. This is not people coming and saying, I am going to learn how to be a mental health provider. That is not what's happening. We are looking at how we can create awareness, intervention, and prevention. And there are groups that are doing this. One of my favorite groups is Dancing Well. They use folk music, song, and dance. And one of the reasons that they use that is because often in these art forms, there's a lot of connection. They have a history in like barn raising and holding hands. There's oxytocin and clapping and just really having a communal experience that's beyond a social dance of, hey, let's come together and do whatever couple social dance. Embody, again, I'll just put the link there. Embody has done an amazing amount of what's already being done. And we do it at the Healing Moon. We were doing it at another site, which was really great. But the Healing Moon on Giant City Road really was a space that encapsulated what we were about. They are already doing things like yoga and healing touch. And the space is so welcoming and warm that as I began to look at how this was developing, I realized that I was taking a lot from our embodied practices. Love you, Lisa. Love you, Lori. All right, so we know the why, a little bit more of the why. I will direct you to another site for more of the why. So what's the what? A 3 to 4 day immersive conference with experiential workshops. So we know that we're not using that word conference. We are calling it a retreat. And 3 to 4 days, because there has been conversation as is 4 days too long? Is 4 days not enough? And looking at that, we in our last meeting, we really have kind of drilled down on having 3 days and possibly having that fourth day as a professional day. It's a lot to ask someone to give up 3 to 4 days. And even though these are not 3 to 4 full days, the first day starts at 5. That Saturday on a Friday at 5. That Saturday is like maybe 11 to 9 because it ends with the dance. That Sunday starts at around 11:04. And then looking again at the possibility of, yes, what we will do is have that Monday as a professional day. Locations. So initially, thank you so much, African American Museum of Southern Illinois. We love you also. Initially, we were looking at having it at the Latter-day Saints and also at the African American Museum. We looked at also having it at other locations, but that would mean having other locations open up their spaces to us, having other churches or other spaces to say, yes, you can come and have this retreat here. So far, that has not happened with churches, but we did get a very generous offer from Healing Moon to have some of our programming there. And what that looks like, we have not quite fleshed out, but thank you so much, Lori and Robin. All right, so the project description, we're looking at having a retreat. Again, it's not a conference anymore, that will provide an opportunity for people in Southern Illinois and beyond. And we've even talked about that, like how much, like where beyond, but definitely Carbondale, hopefully Marion and Murfreesboro, and maybe some beyond. I would love to have the problem that there are so many people who want to come to this that we are struggling with identifying parameters. Safe spaces, thank you so much, Jeff. Um, we want to emphasize how art and safe spaces can act to mitigate harm. So the safe spaces is really key, making sure that people are not pressured, that people are not forced to do anything, and also not putting a time stamp on anyone's healing, not saying that that you have to heal in any certain amount of time. So who are we looking at? The other thing that we have really agreed upon is not only looking at participants as ambassadors, but calling them ambassadors. And looking at having a group of people who will apply and be selected for this immersive retreat experience where they will feel what it's like firsthand to come and see how art changes things, how art, even a little bit of art, can change the way someone is feeling about their own traumatic experiences. But also having that person take away nuggets. We use the word train, and that was a sticking point for us. When we say trained, again, if someone is doing, I am a Reiki master, and I have spent years cultivating that, like almost a decade and a half now. There's no way that I'm going to spend an hour or 3 hours with someone and they are going to be a Reiki master like me. But they may understand some elements of Reiki that they might want to use in their place, in their site. So we're looking at our ambassadors coming to this retreat and grabbing nuggets of information and being able to take those back to their community, education site, places of worship, neighborhoods, families, even, and being able to cultivate these experiences, not the same that they receive, but their own based on what's appropriate for their site. So I like the idea that we are making ambassadors who then are making ambassadors. Ballet takes years to become masterful. Zumba takes a 1 hour training. You're not going to become masterful, but that after that 1 day training, you can go out and teach Zumba. So this is something that people can take, have this experience, and then with the help of those who are leading the retreat, go out and immediately create awareness, tools for intervention and prevention. So we are inviting those 25 ambassadors who will go into the clinics, community organizations, beauty salons, and train. And again, this word train is a sticking point, but help people acquire. They are creating a curriculum, their own curriculum of, of an art healing journey. There are unofficial curriculum that we participate in every day. And it's not written, we don't call it that. The way that I learned to garden from my grandfather, it was a curriculum. The way that someone learns to drum or dance without formal lessons, that is a curriculum. So that word train, I'm keeping it there, but really we are looking at the dissemination of information that happens naturally, often in multi-generational settings, often in community. So this retreat is designed for a diverse audience. And aside from these professions, what is not written here, but is written in another space, is that the diversity is not just a professional diversity. And by profession, I am saying that this is what you do with the majority of your time. So if you are a neighborhood organization, you are a professional neighborhood organizer, even if no one is giving you the $100,000 or more per year that you deserve. But also looking at um, language, ethnicity, immigration, citizenship, nationality status, racial ethnicity status, faith, belief status, looking at more than looking beyond the binaries of black and white, which we so often do, but looking into the diversity of people who are in the Southern Illinois area and all of that encompasses. Sexual orientation, gender identity, looking at SES status, looking at having everyone in the room. Because from all of those categories, we have parents and we have children. And that is where the adverse childhood experiences are happening in the home or with people who are working with children. So this conversation is still relatively new outside of mental health. In many ways, it is kind of groundbreaking to suggest that we are formally going to train ambassadors to go out and implement tools of art for healing, again, little h healing trauma. And what will it look like? They're going to be interactive sessions, workshops led by experienced facilitators, experiential sessions that in this retreat setting, people can really understand what it feels like. They're getting pampering on the front end so that they can know what it feels like to help other people have just a little bit of that experience. So, an example of what someone might have, this may happen, but this is not written in stone. A session on gospel music and sound healing, where a participant might learn there's listening and communication in the style of Rogerian, evoking a sense of calm intention as acceptance in between notes of music, promoting voice for those who feel voiceless as empowering, healing the body away from anxiety with gratitude, praise, and thanksgiving. You do not have to believe in any certain deity to experience the benefits of gospel music as sound healing. So we this is a sample. When I say sample, I mean sample. We have not quite figured out what the exact schedule is going to look like, but we really want to hammer that down within the next um, couple of weeks. Like, really, if we could get it down and be 4 months in, that would be great. How we open sets the tone for the entire weekend. And I have seen my wonderful, talented friend Larry do this a few times. He is absolutely amazing. And again, this is a sample. Testimonial is something that we attribute to Gloria Azundua, who lived on the border of Texas and Mexico. And she talked about living in liminal spaces. And she talked about her own trauma of not belonging anywhere and belonging everywhere all at once, and what that was like, and some of the harm that happened to her as being a mestiza woman who was too dark in her own community, and who was made aware of that, looking at some of that emotional neglect. Um, that's a possibility. What definitely will happen is some kind of dance, whether it's salsa dance or Zumba. And then at some point within that dance, we will talk about what dance does to the brain, the body, the nervous system, and how it happens as a community. So this is what we're looking at as our budget. Thank you so much to the folks who have given us money already, SIH and Centerstone. And a Saturday proposed schedule might look like maybe starting at 11 o'clock with something from Eastern practices, maybe yoga. We looked at several things. We talked about giving people a choice of going to more than, yeah, a choice between a couple of sessions. But we also talked about, you know, having the sessions longer so that people can really sink in and experience the sessions and not feel like they have to run from one session to the other, but also that in between the sessions, being able to maybe journal or sit with their feelings or have conversations with other folks who are at the retreat. Sunday, we looked at um, having folks have a variety of church movement or other ceremonial circles that they can attend, whether that's something like Embody or something at Healing Moon or churches that have been identified. And again, here's this gospel music as a possibility. We've also had an offer of the Old School Jamboree to come and sing at the retreat. Looking at having a panel discussion, raising children in stressful times while minimizing the adversity in childhood experiences. So we already have a couple of people lined up for that panel. And then the closing ceremony. So we say closing, but we know that there's a possibility that there's going to be that fourth day where people who may not have been able to attend during the weekend can come on that Monday, whether that is professionals or people who just weren't able to attend throughout the weekend. And here are some other questions and some other thoughts. But I had in another place what the retreat might look like. Oh, yeah. So, what it might look like, again, just wanting to emphasize that we are not making experts. The word train does not mean that we are making experts. We are sharing information and having people choose the nuggets that's best for their practices. So, something that could happen based on what someone is taking for their own site is maybe a tribal dance for birthing families and conversations on discipline at Shawnee Health, multi-generational drumming and poetry on emotional abuse and neglect at Victory during food distribution, examining oppression through the planting of a community garden at the Healing Moon after a Body Remembers dance, or having the intake genie at the Survivors Empowerment Center do after they've done a 2-hour assessment unearthing difficult traumatic past, come out and bring clay or Legos or coloring pages. These are not things I've used these people. They do not even know that I've used them except for in Survivors Empowerment Center. It's an example of who's in the community and how art for healing trauma might look like. Again, trauma is not going to be healed in one day. We are looking at investing time in our ambassadors who will invest time in the community. And we are looking at change, and change, healing is a journey. Change is a journey. All right. So I think that's it. So what's next? So we have to really hammer in on who's our presenters and find our participants. There are a couple of people who have already talked to me about wanting to participate that. We need a little bit more money or in-kind donations. And then what that dispatch, what happens after the retreat. So that's it. So I will send out a follow-up email, or maybe this is in your email that you've received this recording in, to give you more information on other sites that you can look at that are associated with Dancing in the Well. There is an actual classroom. I've used Google Classroom to set up a site for us to communicate with each other in between times, so that you can know more about what's going on, but actually ask questions about the different particulars. And also the Facebook page is a great place to come and look at what's going on in the area of art and healing, in the area of trauma, and also what people are talking about in the area of adverse childhood experiences. If you've gotten this far, or even if you didn't, if you skipped around, thank you so much for whatever level of involvement you have committed or are planning to commit. It is a strong hope of mine that together we would be able to intervene and decrease the incidences of adverse childhood experience.